A lot of people are kind of in that boat where they make so much money from land and then they put it into rental properties or something like that where they can have some tax write-off, stuff like that.
I was hoping for just like a quick flip out the gate, get some feet underneath me. But I really like reframed that and thought that if I could start with a subdivision, things can really only get easier from there.
I get so many people that like mail doesn't work, and you're a perfect example of like it does work. Like your first mailer, you got 4 deals. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Real Estate Investing Podcast. I'm your host, Ron Apke, joined by one of our students, Logan P. Logan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, third time's a charm. We've hit the record button, or I guess I forgot to hit the record button once, and we just did half the episode, but excited to get back into the story for sure. Logan joined the program in June 2024. And I like just going over, like you haven't done 20 deals. Some people we have on here have done 20, 30 deals. You're not one of those people, but you have a very interesting story with your first deal that I want to get into, everything like that. Let's just talk about first your background before you got into land investing, though.
Yeah, absolutely. So my background's mainly in sales. I have a dual degree in professional selling and finance. I currently work as an account executive for Pearson Education in higher ed, where I manage a sales territory in Raleigh, North Carolina.
We'll get into this more later, and I was talking to someone, I don't remember who it was. Salespeople who come into this business, I think salespeople in general, like you can go do any business. If you can sell something, if you can talk to people on the phone, it's so valuable. And we can talk later about kind of that, how that transition to land, how that helped you in land for sure. But when did you actually first hear about land investing?
Yeah. So I first heard about it through my buddy Landon Blue, who's been in the community. Yeah, we learned about it when we were visiting another buddy in Colorado, and we were eating for dinner. And he told us that he was, spending a large sum of money on mail, and we thought he was insane for it. And fast forward 6 months, and his business is an absolute rocket ship at this point. So he really got me into it, got me interested in listening to your guys' podcast, and really kicked off from there.
So this was what was the timetable when you first kind of heard about it? You joined in June. When was this?
Yes. So that was right early, probably mid-January that
Yeah.
I first heard about it from Landon.
And Landon is someone, if you guys go back and watch podcasts with Landon, like Landon is someone who's very, very risk tolerant. Like the way he did it is not the way I would advise most people in general. Like he went in $40,000 of credit card debt. But the payoff is 7 figures per year now. Like he is absolutely crushing it. I love the word of mouth that he brought you into this because you seem to fit perfectly for this business model. What was the timeline as far as from when you first heard about it? What did that look like to when you actually joined the program? Like, this is for me.
Yeah, totally. So I would say after I had met with Landon initially there, I started just delving into the podcast constantly. And that was during kind of like our spring selling semester since I sell to higher ed, it's a lot more business booming during the semesters. So I'm typically driving since I'm in outside sales,
Mhm.
constantly listening to your podcast. Every time I get in the car, one's on. Every time I go home, one's on. So I was listening quite a bit until June. Right before mid-June, we went on a vacation. I said, as soon as I get home, we're buying the course and getting after it.
Awesome. So you started mid-June as far as with the program. I love
Yeah.
like some people are very like, this is for me right this second and I'm going to buy and then do this. It's different for everybody. There's no like rhyme or reason or right way to do it. And a lot of people like overthink, like, should I wait another two? Like if you want to wait, if you want to do more education, 100%, podcasts are just unbelievable. Not just ours, but as far as just podcasts in general, the ability to do it when you're driving, especially outside sales. I think Daniel's
Right.
talked about that a lot. Like you're driving from appointment to appointment, and you just have a lot of time in between, and you can do so much education on stuff. I used to do it with the bigger pockets when I was I don't know, college or after college. But any real estate experience before this?
Yeah, nothing too crazy. I started about 2 years ago. My wife and I so we got our primary house when we moved to Raleigh about 4 years ago. And then bought a rental 2 years ago in Durham, North Carolina. And yeah, we really wanted to get more entrepreneurial from there. We got that rental, got a tenant in for the past 2 years, but we came upon that point where we wanted to keep scaling and didn't know how. And seeing Landon continuing to create capital, continuing to generate, really was the opening that we said we should pursue this and see where
Mhm.
we can where we
Were
can
you
go
look
from there.
were you looking for something that was more like a cash flow? Obviously, like you can't pull a lot of cash out of rental properties. Like you
Yep.
have to do some crazy projects to be able to get equity where you can pull cash out. Where land is a uh, cash cow in terms of like that can fuel buying long term assets. Is that how you kind of looked at this business?
Absolutely, I did. Yeah, I really looked at it as our kind of capital generator of such. So if we can keep, pulling money into it, continuing to put marketing out and continue generating more capital, that's the best way that we can continue to push forward in that.
A lot of people are kind of in that boat where they make so much money from land and then they put it into rental properties or something like that where they can have some tax write-off stuff like that and really help them with the tax bill at the end of the year. So you joined in June. When did you send your first marketing out?
Yeah, so first marketing was last week of October that we sent out.
Last week of October. So a little talk about that little. I mean, I guess it was 4 months in between. Talk about that.
Yeah, yeah. So especially after we bought the course, I knew that my time was going to get a lot more tied up because I was starting. I'm in an MBA program at North Carolina State University as
Right.
well, so I knew time would get a little more intensive. So in that period between June and the first batch going out, I really spent a lot of time going through the course, continuing to listen to the podcast, continue educating myself, and then went through the course multiple times, and then got about 6 months of data already ready to just immediately be sent out in mail for every, I guess, continual month after that.
Yeah.
So just trying to get a good pipeline built before that.
So when you're prepping for that, like one, what was your like what mail volume are you planning for monthly? And two, is it a biweekly thing? Is it just a monthly thing? What does that look like?
Yeah, so it's just a monthly thing right now. We do it every 14th of the month that we send our batch out, and it's typically around 2,500. With this new deal that we got in, which expands our capital, I definitely want to shoot that up a bunch more during summer where I'll have more time. But right now it's around 2,500.
All right. So was that first mailer 2,500 end of October?
Yep, yep, you got it.
And this was an exciting one. You got, I know you told me before, you got how many deals from this mailer?
Yeah, so 4 deals from the first mailer.
Have you purchased all four of those? What's kind of where those stand?
Yeah, yeah. So we have one under contract. We have one kind of like waiting off in probate, and then one set to close on March 19th as well. And then the other larger subdivide one that we did already gone through.
So first deal was a subdivide. Let's get into that. What was the
Totally.
acreages? And this is unbelievable, guys. Like you don't hear a lot of time. I don't know if I've heard yet where someone's first land deal is a subdivide, which I love. But let's talk about the process of getting that deal essentially.
Yeah, yeah, totally. So it came in, we have a reception 24/7 set up as well. So once the mail hit, that call just came right in, was curious and asked questions, and of course approached them in a friendly manner, kind of explained the model as it exists, and just had really hit it off with that seller too, and really created a great relationship. So we agreed on that price for 38,000 for 21 acres. And
What's
then
your offer
yeah,
price? Sorry.
yep, the offer was 38,000, so he
Okay,
stuck
got it.
with that.
You
Yep,
stuck with it. Nice.
yep.
um, okay, so $38,000, 21 acres. How quick were you to kind of lock that seller up?
Immediate, yeah.
Yeah.
As soon as I get that chance, yeah.
So
As
you're
soon
like your first one of your first calls, you're on the phone with this guy. Are you reviewing the deal like as you're on the phone with him?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I pulled it up. It looked fantastic from all things considered, from the podcast that I've listened to, from the course that you guys taught. And so everything checked out for me, and I was like, absolutely, like, let's get that in writing, get it sent over. But then, of course, it totally helps every Wednesday you guys do the deal reviews, because as soon as Wednesday came around, I was like, I need to get on this. I need to get it checked to make sure I am correct.
All right, so let's talk. What do you think? So you locked him up for $38,000. What do you think market value was for the land as is 21 acres?
Yeah, as is, it definitely, after looking at comps and having you guys review it, I definitely think around 75 is what we could have gotten for that as is.
So pretty perfect pricing. Is that kind of were you pretty happy with your that's your first mailer that went out in terms of pricing something? You're not a data person that I know of historically.
Yep.
You're a salesperson. But you offered 50% of market value. Were you pretty happy with that, I guess?
Oh, I was pumped. Yeah, absolutely
Like it
pumped
worked.
that I got it right.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's huge. Okay, so you got the deal reviewed by us. When did this idea, like I might be able to make some more money from subdividing this, came up?
Yeah, yeah. After you guys mentioned it in the deal review, I also talked about it a bit in depth with Landon too about kind of what he saw for it. And after you guys both agreed on the subdivide, looked into it more, kind of also using the land portal, kind of mapped it out with how I could break it down in the subdivision. And yeah, from there I was like, this makes perfect sense. There's a way that we can get a little bit more extra on top here, so I should pursue it.
So, okay, so as far as the subdivision, I mean, first off, like, was there fear involved with that, or like, was there anxiety, or like, okay, I'm not just buying and flipping this. I could make $40,000 buying and flipping this. I'm going to, I'm gonna go ahead and subdivide this. What were your thoughts in terms of that?
Yeah, yeah, and there was totally hesitancy to that because really I'm coming into a business that I know nothing about aside from everything that you guys have taught. So there was fear in doubling down on that, especially out of the gate. I was hoping for just like a quick flip out the gate, get some feet underneath me. But I really like reframed that and thought that if I could start with a subdivision, things can really only get easier from there. It's a lot of pulling strings, making sure things work out the way that you need them to. But starting off clean with that was just absolutely fantastic.
And that's awesome. So what'd you break the acreages down into? What was kind of your plan?
Yep, so the subdivision was broken into a 10, and that was just based on kind of like where the land was for road frontage. So there was a bit more extra to the top that went behind properties. So we broke it down into a 10, a 3, and a 5.
And what has sold, if anything, thus far?
Yep, so the 10 and the 3 next to it sold, and then the 5 on the opposite side of the other 3 sold, and those all in sold for 90,500.
So you have one 3-acre property remaining.
Correct. Yep.
Which one sold first? When did you get your money back?
Yeah,
Not
so
your money. I know you got funding, but we can
yep.
talk about that in a second.
Yeah, the first one that sold was actually the 10 and the 3 together. So that sold for 65, like
So you're
pretty quickly.
so you got 65 grand, or your funder, like you guys got all your money back plus some, and you have a 5 and a 3-acre parcel still to sell, and then you sold the 5-acre for $30,000. Now you're 95. Like you're in for $38,000 to start this, and like you still have more. That's why I think one of the cool things about subdividing is like holding land long term, where you subdivide and you keep one of the parcels. Like theoretically, you could do that. I mean, not
Yeah.
with an investor, it's a little different, but where you subdivide 50 acres into 5, 10-acre parcels, and you keep one of them, and you still make money on them, and just hold it for long term. But it's just crazy that you've 2.5 extra money with one parcel still to go. That's awesome, awesome, awesome. But let's talk about the funding. How'd you get funding? What did that look like?
Yeah, yeah, and that's the huge benefit of really joining your guys' community is as soon as I posted that for deal funding in the community, that I think I posted it late at night, like around 10 p.m., went to sleep, woke up to like 10 or 15 calls, and I was like, this is fantastic. So I really wanted to go through those calls and vet them as well to find an investor with subdivision experience, because I wanted someone to be able to kind of coach me, teach me about the right things to do. So not only does it work for this deal, but so I know going forward with them too. And yeah, found a great investor who's been helpful every step of the way.
So it wasn't as much like let's get the cheapest money as possible. It was more like let's find someone who can help me, can not hold my hand, that's not the right word, but can help me along the way.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. I saw that being even higher value, than the money, which was still great in the return, but should help even going forward.
100%. And you said you want to do subdivides in the future. So, yeah, I mean, nothing's better than, I guess, throwing your feet to the fire and doing the first deal as a subdivide. So you have this 3-acre left. I don't think we've talked about what do you think you're going to get for this 3-acre?
Yep. So conservatively, I think it should sell for at least 25.
Okay, so you're gonna get 115 after all this is done. Like your first deal netting $100,000 is incredible. I guess proof's kind of in the pudding there. You had proof of concept. Some people don't get proof of concept as early as this, but I don't think you need to be convinced or anything about the business model anymore.
No, not at all. Yeah. I mean, it was great even from the start too, where I just kept telling myself it's fantastic getting like the texts from reception 24/7, and you get a lot of no's, but even if you get a maybe, it's fantastic if you get a yes and you can hop on that call right away. So even just seeing that there was traction coming from our first batch was just really cool to see.
So what's your plan with this? I mean, after fun, whatever it is, how you make $60,000 yourself, whatever the number turns out to
Mhm.
be. What's your plan with that in terms of, is it anything personal? Is it just going into marketing? What does that look like?
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of it's going to be reinvested. I'd say probably 95% of it. We might treat ourselves a little bit here and there with some of it. But yeah, a large portion of that will be reinvested. And that's really with the goal of leading into the summer. That's typically when my work dies down a bit more and I have a lot more free time. So I'd like to really poof up the amount of marketing that we're doing in mail as well as texting. So I'd hope to hit somewhere around like 6 to 8,000 mailers per for the each summer month.
And this is, you've only marketed via mail. A lot of, I get so many people that like mail doesn't work, mail doesn't work. And you're a perfect example of like, it does work. Like, yeah, you're going to have dry spells 100%. I'm never arguing that. Your first mailer, you got 4 deals. Your next 3, I mean, maybe they're duds, maybe they're not. It sounds like you sent 10,000 mailers about thus far.
Yeah.
But you've just done mail marketing, correct?
So I actually have done texting as well over the past couple months.
Okay.
When we initially sent that first batch out in October, we kind of just waited to see what we were pulling in, what made sense, and then after we got responses, I got set up with launch control about a week or two after stuff started hitting
Okay.
because I was like, this is real. Like we're getting things. I need to follow up with them. So definitely we just have the light plan for it right now. So it's about 10,000 texts a month, but want to make sure I'm getting the value out of that too. So I want to keep hitting our marketing up for mail so that I can keep hitting that 10,000 each month.
Before we get back to the show, guys, make sure to leave us a comment and hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications. Ron and I read through every single comment individually. It helps us plan our 2025, our topics, what you guys want to hear, and helps us improve the show. It means a lot, guys, and let's get back to the show.
Are you doing anything special or different when you're pooling lists, when you're targeting people, or are you just kind of going by the book?
Pretty much, yeah, by the book. Exactly what you guys taught in the course. Really just going straight to that. I followed piece by piece every single thing. And then just having some of the sales knowledge, at least for launch control, I just took some of my stuff from my actual 9 to 5 and put that into our text follow ups with the right lingo, the right things to say, and kind of just launch those from there too.
So this one deal you've done, you'll net whatever, 80, $90,000. What do these other 3 deals in the pipeline look like in terms of projected profit?
Yeah, yeah, totally. I'm glad you asked. I had it written down here just in case. So the one that we'll be closing on March 19th is a buy for 11K, should sell for 25.
Mhm.
The other one that we're kind of waiting for in probate yet that's working through is a buy for 11, sell for 22. And then the one I actually just got off the negotiation about, it was at 11 o'clock today before we hopped on with the last deal, and we agreed on 14, and it should sell for 27.
What are these funding look like? Are you self-funding these?
Yep. So with the subdivide profits, I'm going to be self-funding these ones.
Wow, that's awesome. I mean, that's another whatever, 35, $40,000 of profit right there. And it's helpful like when you I love the ability to self-fund these buy for 10, sell for 24, and you can get funding for them 100%.
Totally.
Buy for 11, sell for 25. But you're all in that ballpark. Like this stuff adds up really, really fast, especially if you can turn them fast. What about, let's just talk about 2025 a little bit. Like it's still early in the year. It sounds like you're going to have a really solid year for sure. Do you are you one of the people that sets goals at the beginning of the year? Like,
I do,
okay,
yeah.
what does that look like in terms of your goals?
Yep. So yeah. So for the entire year, which will be a stretch goal, I like with being full time and then MBA work and everything, I wanted to set it for 500K made this year though,
Okay.
and then ideally at least close 20 deals.
On the buy side?
Yep.
What is, as far as like strategies to hit this? Because you talked a little bit about ramping up your marketing. You added texting. Any other strategies going in to hit this 500K net?
Yeah, totally. And And this is something that I really don't have much experience in. I've really just learned it from yourselves talking on the podcast, but hiring out a VA is something that my wife and I are actually looking to do over the next couple months.
Mhm.
And that's really with the lead up to summer. I'll have more time. We'll be able to push more volume. So if we could hire a VA to really kind of handle our texting in our SMS marketing as well as doing some of the data scrubbing, that would free up a lot of my time, especially with our these 6 months that we kind of had built up is dwindling pretty quickly. So if we could get someone else on the team as well and get that going and kind of prop ourselves up a little bit more and continue that deal flow.
I mean, everyone in your position should be getting like should have a VA in my opinion. Like it's just so affordable and they're very high. Like if you know how to hire them, like follow. We did a YouTube video on Daniel did a YouTube video on hiring them, how to hire them a while ago.
Yep.
Just like going through that stuff, and you find the right one, and like they can have a huge impact. It's not necessarily like the highest value task for sure, but as far as taking things off your plate that are taking up time that give you time to put into higher level tasks, talking to people on the phone. Any other, you talked about subdividing earlier. Obviously, your first deal was a subdivide. Any plans to target those types of deals, or it's just like when you'll make things happen when deals like that come about?
Yeah, no, I think especially after that first one, it was really eye-opening because, right, we talked about it being, there was a lot of fear initially going into it. After the fact, it was so much fun to
Yeah.
actually do it. Like I had a blast doing it. Of course, it's pulling the strings, making sure or the surveyor can get out, title can get through it, everything can get moving. But yeah, especially going forward, that was so fun to actually do. So I'd love to keep, especially kind of going forward in summer. This would where we'd really start it. Where one ideally work up to about 10,000 mailers a month. And that would be just quick flips, whatever we can pull in, and then also do a batch for just specifically targeting subdivides would be the strategy.
You say we a lot. Is your wife helping you out?
She is, yeah,
What's she
she's
doing?
helping out. Yeah, so she helps out a ton because she has real estate background. She worked for a title company for 4 years,
Mm.
so it's really a great partnership because I like being the sales guy. I like being right at the front. She always makes fun of me because as soon as we get a text that has a maybe or yes, I'm running to the phone, looking it up, calling. But she has a lot of that title experience where once we get something under contract, she's following up with the title company. She knows all the different pieces that need to kind of be, watched over, checked off, everything else that needs to get through to close. So
That's really valuable.
yeah, so it helps out a lot, and it's led to a lot of fun conversations with us looking to the future.
Yeah, so your sales, she's or she's kind of transactions.
Yep.
Who's doing disposition?
Yeah, so both of us.
Okay.
Yeah, so that helps out. I'm mainly covering when we post on MLS and everything, I'm taking all those calls, but we thought about that being beneficial too, because if I can post on Marketplace, obviously the algorithm will take me where it can go, but having another hand on there too to continue to field in more leads is just, it helps out twice as much.
That's awesome. This is a incredible first 8 months of this business, and I mean, you can say 8 months because that's when you joined the course. But realistically, you didn't do any marketing to get these types of deals till 4 months ago, and you have whatever $140,000 of profit in your pipeline. You're funding your own deals now from that profit, which is incredible. What about just like who's this business model meant for? Because like people like you are working a 9 to 5, like I think it's natural, like you're a grinder, like you're a go-getter. But what kind of person listening to this, like, do you think this business model is kind of perfect for?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I really, the first thing that comes to mind is just a go-getter
Yeah.
mentality. And that was something that I thought about for a while, especially after I graduated in 2021 from my undergrad. You get into real adult life and it's 9 to 5, you're kind of doing your thing, but then it came up to me like a year or two ago where it's like I feel like I can do something more. Like I have more time in the day. There's something that I can really pursue to be passionate about. And that's where I really looked into it. So I think it can really be for anyone, but for those people that are just looking for a little bit something more to be excited about, to keep working on something that they can call their own, I think that's exactly what we're looking for.
So, like someone looking to get into this, like, would you be if they had $10,000? Would you be like, you got to do mail, or like, do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I think especially starting off, mail just makes sense, right?
Mhm.
Like you can't beat it. You're gonna get responses either way, and you're gonna see some proof of concept, whether you land a deal or not. You're gonna see responses, so I'd highly suggest that. But especially as even with texting and stuff, I've gotten some stuff back. I've gotten signed pricing agreements that just didn't necessarily make sense for us. It just
Mhm.
wasn't a great piece of land, but I think, the mail text follow up combo, it just works great. And it's an easy kind of plug and play too once you get it going.
Yeah, I think a lot of people try to get too complicated with their marketing. Like, I think multiple, like, mail and text is my preferred. Like, as far as mail, text, and I even like adding some cold text in there as well. I don't mind at all. I think that's done really well. What have you learned so far in these like 8 months? It's probably been like looking back. Sometimes it's really good to like look back, like, my goodness, 8 months ago, like I didn't know much about land. I was just listening to a podcast. Now I've done a subdivide. Talk about kind of the lessons you've learned thus far in these 8 months.
Yeah, there's a ton of lessons that have been learned. So many different mistakes that I've made, but I mean, that's the way you learn, right? You have
Mhm.
to make mistakes to be able to get something out of it. And especially just with starting off our first mail, I'm sure over time my pricing has gotten a lot better. I think I just also got kind of lucky out of that first gate with those mailers too, and in being maybe not as much of a saturated county. I think I've learned a lot about balancing too, especially with everything else going on. It's really opened my eyes to, looking at different hires for VAs, being able to split my time with my partner as well with my wife, and then yeah, just carving out all the different time that I need to really enjoy my life.
100%. How much time are you putting into this business right now per day, per week?
Yeah, so in the summer, it was a lot more time. I was probably spending anywhere from like 10 to 15 hours a week really getting that data up and running. Now it's probably about like 2, 3 hours a week. And
Mhm.
that's, of course, on the busy season with work and a
Wow.
lot of classes and stuff going on. So once that kind of clears up a bit more, we'll probably get back to that amount of time that I was doing this coming summer.
So only 2 to 3 hours per week right now.
Yeah, so I pretty much right now I'm just responding to calls that came in through mail, and then as the contracts look to expire with the mail that I've sent out, I typically text about a week to 2 weeks before that contract expires. And so once that hits, right, I just have launch control on my phone, shoot out all the texts online, and then as I'm going through the day, I see a text come in, immediately respond to it.
Do you have visions of doing this full time?
Yeah, I would love to. Absolutely. And I think that's something my wife and I have talked about quite a bit in being able to travel. We don't have kids yet, but that's something in the future. So being able to travel with them, being able to travel together and really work remotely from anywhere would be the dream.
Looking back, like what, and you can also look forward to, like, what has this business model done for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty insane to think about, getting that check in the mail once that subdivide finally hits. And you always think, you work that W-2, you're stuck in that amount that you're making for the entire year, but it completely, opened my eyes to the amount of things that I can do for myself that we can do as a family, and it's just crazy to think about. So it's opened our eyes to travel. We've been able to take a lot more trips. We planned a lot more for this year as well. So just a lot of opportunity out there with it.
And that's with 2 to 3 hours per week. So it
Yeah,
sounds
yeah.
like there's a lot more time in the week than 2 to 3 hours per week. So no, that is incredible. And yeah, I love that it's kind of provided. And that first check is like, it doesn't matter if it's $100. That first check, like,
Totally.
hey, I remember it was probably like 13.5. We got our first deal that we flipped. And it just there's a feeling like, okay, this works.
Yeah.
Like, this is amazing. And yours was way bigger than that, which is awesome. I'm happy for you for that.
Thank
Um,
you.
I know we talked a little about people getting started. Any advice for people looking to get started? So we talked about the kind of avatar for who this is for. Any advice for people looking to get started though?
Yeah, I mean the biggest thing I was thinking about this because out of all the podcasts you always ask this at the end. I really the biggest thing you just got to push through the fear of doing it. It's so easy to get caught up in the idea of like failing or I'm gonna make a mistake. Maybe this isn't gonna work, but all of the great outcomes come after you push through that fear, and that
Mm.
that was something that I felt entirely going into this. And then once it actually hits, a deal closes, and you can see the opportunity ahead of you, it just is the best feeling ever, really.
I feel like pushing through something that you don't want to do, like there's rarely like a bad outcome, honestly.
It's so true.
You just don't see it. It's like that picture of the guy like mining for gold and he stops right before and turns around when he's a couple inches away from the gold because he quit. But that's really, really good advice for sure. I had another question for you. Do you have like a 5-year vision for this thing? Or are you kind of bigger picture, or like it's just yearly goals?
So really over the next 2 years, it's killing it on my MBA, doing great in my job, and then continuing to just uplift this every time I have some leftover time, in my week.
Man, look, and this is a awesome story. We'll definitely get you back on here in the next year or so to kind of get an update, because you're so new to the industry. You're so new to this business model, but so much success early on. And some people's success is 20 deals, but some people's 20 deals don't add up to what your first few deals did. But
Totally.
Logan, I appreciate you being on the show. If you guys are watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button below. Listen on Apple or Spotify. Leave us a review. Share this with a friend. Thank you so much. We'll see you guys next time.
As always, thank you for joining. Please do us a huge favor and like and subscribe our YouTube channel and share this with a friend. It really means the world to Ron and I, but more importantly, it could help change the life of someone else. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next episode.